Have you ever wondered what truly transforms a child into something the world fears? Stay with me until the end, because what you're about to discover may surprise you. Before the world called him a monster, he was just a child lost in the darkness. A young man who carried in his eyes the weight of something no one could comprehend. Imagine the scene. The dim light of a cold hallway reflecting off the cracked walls, shadows moving as if they had a life of their own. And in the midst of it all, he's alone, trying to understand a world that seemed to have no space for him. It's in this contrast between light and shadow that the story of what many would call a villain begins, but who, deep down, is just a human being shaped by circumstances you can't even imagine. Do you feel it too? That chill down your spine when you realize there's a story behind every action and that not everything is as it seems? What you're about to hear now isn't just about fear or supernatural monsters. It's about the complexity of a life marked by loss, abandonment, and the silence of those who were supposed to protect. Every step he took in the dark was an echo of the world that rejected him, and every judgmental look was like a warning etched into his soul. You don't belong here. But what happened to cause this once vulnerable child to begin such a dark path? Think for a moment about your own life. Have you ever felt misunderstood, isolated, trapped in situations that seemed impossible to change? Now imagine living that every day, without anyone to reach out, without a voice to say, "I understand you, you are not alone." It was in this scenario that the seeds of darkness began to grow, silently, almost imperceptibly, until they became impossible to ignore. And this is where the story becomes fascinating, because each choice, each small gesture of survival, shaped something much greater than even he could have imagined. The atmosphere is heavy, charged with tension, and you can feel the weight of the world on his shoulders. The images that accompany this narrative are like reflections of his own curiosity, light and shadow dancing together, creating contrasts that arouse both fear and empathy. And it is precisely this empathy that captivates us, that makes us want to understand every detail, every motive hidden behind his eyes. You will realize that the line between good and evil has never been so thin, and that the transformation of a child into something the world calls a monster is far more complex than any superficial judgment could explain. And the most intriguing thing is that even shrouded in darkness, there was something deeper within him, something few dared to notice. A silent purpose, an inner strength that could not be extinguished by circumstance alone. What you will discover now is that his story is not just about pain or loss. It is about choices, about what shapes us when no one is looking, about the moments that define who we truly become. Stay with me, because what follows will reveal not only the events that transformed this child, but also the unseen reasons that drove her into darkness, reasons no one could have anticipated. Light and shadow intertwine, and what seemed like a mere villain at first begins to reveal layers you never imagined. And it's at this point that our story truly begins to unfold, leaving a question hanging in the air that you'll want to answer along with me. And as his story unfolds, you begin to realize that we're not just dealing with isolated events, but with a web of emotions, choices, and consequences that could easily mirror situations in any real life. Perhaps, at some point, you've felt something similar, that silent weight that seems to shape you without anyone noticing, that shadow that insists on following every step. And that's precisely where I want to hear from you. If this topic resonates with you, leave a comment below with what touched you most, or what part of this story stirred your own reflections. Sharing these experiences isn't just venting, it's creating a bridge between those who live, feel, and learn. And that's what transforms the content into something alive, something that truly connects people. When you comment, like the video, and subscribe to the channel, you're not only supporting the creator, but also helping this message reach more people who, like you, seek to understand deep stories, find empathy, and reflect on choices and consequences. Your participation here is what makes this channel grow, because each interaction shows that these narratives matter, that they don't go unnoticed, and that there's an audience that wants more than just superficial stories. They want to feel, understand, and connect. So if any part of this journey touched you unexpectedly, don't keep it to yourself. Leave your mark here in the comments, hit the like button if you feel it resonates, and subscribe to follow every step of this narrative, every twist that makes us question who we truly are when no one is looking. And as you do so, we turn our attention to the darkness that begins to surround the protagonist. Light and shadow are not just metaphors. They are living forces that shape every decision, every impulse. And it is precisely at this moment that the first pieces of this dark puzzle begin to fall into place, revealing signs no one noticed before, but which would forever change the trajectory of this lost child. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because to truly understand what transforms someone, you have to look beyond the surface. No one is born a villain, and it is precisely there that the hidden truth of the story begins to reveal itself. Imagine a place where hope seemed impossible, where laughter was rare, and every corner held an echo of loneliness. It was in this setting that he took his first steps, still unable to understand that the world around him was unprepared to welcome someone so different, so sensitive to the invisible pain growing silently within him. The transformation didn't happen suddenly. It was built gradually, between the lines of abandonment, in the small rejections that, added together, began to shape his mindset, his perception of reality, and even his simplest decisions. Every gesture of indifference, every look of disapproval, was like a piece that fit into the dark puzzle of his journey, and every absence reinforced the feeling that there was no room for kindness in that world. But there's something fascinating about this. Even immersed in darkness, there were subtle signs of humanity, moments that were almost lost in the impact of circumstances, but which still existed as traces of a greater truth. What many would call evil was, in reality, the reflection of unresolved experiences, of wounds that were never healed, of a childhood marked by losses no one could fully understand. And this is where the impact of this story deepens, because it forces us to question the very definition of right and wrong, of guilt and responsibility, revealing the behind the scenes of a life that many would judge at first glance. Every decision made, every impulse that seemed cold and calculated, had invisible roots in moments of vulnerability, in experiences that could have been different if there had been only presence, empathy, or a gesture of compassion. His journey shows us that darkness is not an inevitable fate, but a gradual, almost imperceptible process that forms when hope fades and choices become a reflection of the environment. And it is precisely in this silent construction that the first layers of the villain begin to reveal themselves, not as something born ready-made, but as the result of a sequence of events, losses, and rejections that no one noticed or wanted to face. Each step into the darkness carries a weight, a hidden truth about how small emotional wounds can transform someone's mindset, guiding decisions that shape not only their own story, but also the impact they will have on the world around them. Comment there, I'm on this journey too. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because to understand the origin of his darkness, we must look back to the moment his innocence was first shattered. Imagine a child who until then believed the world could be safe, that there were people capable of protecting, guiding, and welcoming them. Suddenly, something happens that completely shatters this perception. It wasn't just a mistake or a misunderstanding, but a trauma that left invisible scars. An emotional wound so deep that life would never seem the same again. He felt loneliness like a concrete weight on his shoulders, each step accompanied by the feeling that no one truly cared. And along with this loneliness came humiliation, a silent blow that made him doubt his worth, his ability to be accepted, to be loved. His trust, until then natural and naive, crumbled, leaving in its place a suspicious look, a mind alert to every gesture or word that could hurt him again. That first wound not only hurt, it changed the way he began to see the world. What had once been light, hope, and curiosity turned into caution, suspicion, and fear. Every interaction became a test. Every decision carried the weight of caution, and the impact of this experience began to shape a mindset that saw life as a field of invisible traps, where kindness and malice coexisted unpredictably. The small injustices of everyday life, neglect, scornful glances, unspoken words, took on a disproportionate intensity because they resonated in the wound that still bled internally. And it's at this point that we begin to realize something fascinating about transformation and decision-making. Even in the face of pain, he was beginning to become someone who could no longer be defined solely by who he was, but by who the world forced him to be. Each trauma carried revelations about who he truly needed to become, to survive, about how to forge an inner strength capable of dealing with an environment that seemed cruel and unforgiving. The journey was just beginning, but the shadows of this transformation were already unfolding in the shadows of his experience. Comment there. That makes sense to me. Now I want to delve even deeper into this topic, because it is at this point that society's impact on him begins to reveal the true dimensions of his transformation. Every disapproving look, every misplaced word, every gesture of disregard became a silent piece in the construction of a wall that grew around his soul. Society, instead of offering acceptance or understanding, labeled him, ignored his needs, and even exploited his vulnerability as if he were disposable. And every rejection, every injustice he experienced was not just an isolated incident. It was another brick in the wall of darkness that slowly built itself within him, shaping his perception of the world, reinforcing the idea that trust was a risk, and that affection, when it existed, came with a price. The mindset that formed from this process was complex, and his decisions began to reflect not only survival, but also a silent learning experience in how to deal with betrayal, contempt, and manipulation. He began to understand that kindness from others was rare, that life was unfair, and that vulnerability could be exploited in ways he had never imagined. Each injustice left scars, small but profound, that intertwined with his fears and frustrations, revealing the hidden truth that not everyone is prepared to deal with the sensitivity of someone carrying deep emotional wounds. And it is precisely at this point that his journey becomes even more fascinating, because the impact of these experiences not only defines the way he sees the world, but also reveals the behind the scenes of a transformation no one has witnessed directly. He learns, even without realizing it, to build internal strategies, to develop a strength born of adversity and the need to protect himself. Each rejection brings him closer to a cruel but necessary understanding of how darkness grows, not out of natural malice, but as a reaction to an environment he constantly insists on hurting and ignoring. Comment there. I'm on this journey too. Now I want to delve even deeper into this topic, because it was at this point that his transformation began to take shape, guided by an influence that would forever change his mindset. A figure emerged. It could have been a master, a silent presence, or even the very darkness he carried, who showed him that pain, when understood and channeled, could become power. It wasn't just about physical strength or control over others. It was about understanding the inner workings of his own mind, discovering how every wound, every rejection, and every injustice could be converted into strategic decisions. For the first time, he realized he no longer needed to be merely a victim of circumstance. There was a path to transform suffering into mastery, vulnerability into skill, frustration into clarity. This shadowy mentor taught not with soft words, but with provocations, challenges, and hard truths. Each lesson reinforced the idea that transformation isn't instantaneous, that real power comes when someone faces their own pain and chooses to use it as a tool. His mindset began to shift. Anger and frustration stopped being merely destructive feelings and became fuel for calculated decisions, for silent strategies no one could perceive. It was fascinating to see how such an enigmatic presence could influence, shape, and accelerate a journey that once seemed lost, opening doors to revelations about control, impact, and self-knowledge that no one else could offer. The dynamic between master and disciple created a hypnotic, almost magnetic effect, awakening a natural fascination for the power hidden within each scar, each painful experience. Little by little, he ceased to be that cornered being and began to understand the logic of darkness, the importance of mastering not only the external world, but also his own inner impulses. Each teaching was a seed, each challenge a brick in the construction of a more intense, more strategic, and more conscious version of himself. Comment there. I'm on this journey too. Now I want to delve even deeper into this topic because we've reached the point that defines true transformation, choice. After so many losses, rejections, and lessons from the dark mentor, he found himself at a crossroads that brooked no hesitation. He could follow the path of adaptation, try to rebuild his lost innocence, or seek ways to reintegrate into a world that had already rejected him so many times. But something inside him had shifted, the realization that life is unfair, that kindness isn't always rewarded, that vulnerability can be exploited. And it was in that instant that the decision was formed. If the world is cruel, then I will be worse. Not for pleasure, but as a logical consequence of everything he'd suffered, as a silent strategy of survival and control. Every scar, every emotional wound, every rejection now became fuel for a mindset that began to see life not just as a scenario of injustice, but as fertile ground for power and domination. This choice highlights the moral duality that fascinates and unsettles us. Was he a villain or a product of the world? Could someone not transform in a similar way if subjected to the same circumstances? His mind began to work like a strategic chessboard, analyzing every decision, every opportunity, and every risk, absorbing previous lessons and experiences to shape actions that previously seemed impossible for a wounded child. Darkness ceased to be a passive reflection and became an active instrument, a silent ally that guided his steps, revealing the hidden truth that power and pain can walk hand in hand, and that each choice has a direct impact on one's own trajectory. At this point, transformation ceases to be merely potential and becomes concrete in the form of conscious decisions, in the courage to embrace chaos as a tool rather than an obstacle. His journey is no longer just about survival, but about mastering, understanding, and controlling the environment around him, laying a solid foundation for everything that comes next. Comment there. That makes sense to me. Now, I want to delve even deeper into this topic because it is at this moment that the villain's birth finally takes place. After all the pain, rejection, and dark learning, he finds himself alone in an environment that seems to conspire against any remaining trace of humanity. Every shadow around him, every distant noise, every breath echoing off the walls blends with the accelerated rhythm of his mind, and it is in this tense silence that he decides to act. This first dark action is not just a gesture of violence or destruction, it is a silent declaration of transformation. The exact moment he leaves the past behind and takes absolute control of his own story. The imaginary camera of the audience's mind captures every detail, the dim light reflecting in his eyes, the weight of the environment, the intensity of the moment, as if the entire world is holding its breath, aware that something inevitable is about to happen. The impact of this decision goes beyond the act itself. Each movement is charged with meaning, a convergence of experiences, wounds, and decisions that culminate in an emotional catharsis that the audience feels viscerally. It's as if every injustice suffered, every moment of solitude, every dark teaching from the mentor condenses into pure energy, transforming pain into power, frustration into strategy, fear into determination. His mindset is now clear, almost calculating, and every subsequent action is guided not only by the need to survive, but by a profound understanding of impact and consequence, of how small choices can forever alter the balance between light and shadow. At this moment, the behind the scenes of her transformation is revealed with cinematic intensity. The lost child no longer exists, giving way to someone who has understood the hidden truth about the world, who has learned to master her own darkness and shape her journey as she wishes. Every detail of this dark birth is a direct reflection of the previous trajectory, and a sense of inevitability envelops the viewer, as all the pieces have fallen into place almost perfectly, making it clear that the next chapter of this story will be even more intense and revealing. Comment there. I'm on this journey too. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because it is at this moment that his philosophy of darkness ceases to be merely a superficial justification and reveals itself as the complete structure that underpins his entire transformation. Every action he takes, every calculated decision does not arise from chaos or impulse. It arises from his own logic, distorted to outsiders, but crystal clear in his mind. He has learned that the world does not reward kindness and that fragility is exploited as a strategic weakness. Therefore, for him, love is weakness, something that distracts, exposes vulnerability, and compromises objectives. Pain, on the contrary, is the purest and most undeniable truth. It does not lie. It does not hide intentions. It does not sugarcoat the facts. Every wound, every rejection, every humiliation suffered becomes fuel for decisions and strategies, becoming part of a journey of profound learning that no one else could fully understand. His mindset is fascinating precisely because it transforms negative emotions into tools of power. The impact of every injustice, every abandonment, every betrayal is absorbed and processed, transforming frustration into clarity, anger into strategic analysis, fear into discipline. It's as if every emotional scar carries a silent lesson, every pain a secret school where he learned to master impulses, calculate consequences, and manipulate circumstances to his advantage. His worldview is distorted but coherent within this logic. Everything the world offers is a reason for survival, and any display of weakness is a vulnerability to be avoided or transformed. He believes that his actions, however cruel they may seem, are not only justifiable but necessary, an inevitable consequence of everything he's experienced. What makes this philosophy even more profound is that it doesn't arise from nothing. It's born of real experiences, of concrete injustices, of losses that shaped his perception of life. He doesn't see evil where it exists, but rather opportunities for transformation and control, viewing pain as a method, suffering as a tool, chaos as a fertile space for evolution and mastery. His every decision, every act of manipulation or force carries the weight of strategic reasoning, a logic that makes sense only within the universe he has mentally constructed. Darkness thus becomes not just an emotional state, but a philosophy of life, an internal code that governs thoughts, attitudes, and choices, guiding him with almost scientific precision in shaping his impact on the world. It is at this point that the audience finally understands the villain on a deeper level. He doesn't act for pleasure, impulse, or whim. He acts because he has learned that the world is cruel, that fragile bonds can break, that truth lies in pain and in the control one exerts over one's own reality. His philosophy of darkness isn't just narrative, it is a complex mental architecture, a mindset shaped by extreme experiences, calculated decisions, and revelations that only those who have experienced similar paths could understand. Every action is a direct reflection of this logic, and every consequence is foreseen, anticipated, and absorbed as part of a larger strategy he has silently constructed throughout his journey. Comment there. I'm on this journey, too. Now I want to delve even deeper into this topic because it is at this point that the price of power begins to become visible, and with it, the full complexity of his transformation. Every calculated decision, every act of dominance, and every strategic move came with silent, almost imperceptible consequences that eroded parts of his humanity. The power he gained was not gratuitous. Each step towards strength and control left internal scars, fragments of emotions he had to suppress to move forward. Loneliness became constant, not only as an absence of companionship, but as a burden on his conscience, a silent reminder of what he sacrificed to maintain the coherence of his philosophy of darkness. He learned that, to be ruthless and effective, he would need to forego simple gestures of empathy, genuine affection, and complete trust, and each renunciation left invisible traces that accumulated within his mind, reinforcing the feeling that each victory came with a heavy emotional debt. The impact of this price is profound. He realizes that as he dominates and controls the external world, he slowly loses parts of himself that he can never regain. The loss of humanity is not dramatic or grandiose, but subtle and constant. It is the smile that is not allowed, the tenderness that is replaced by calculation, the silent guilt that surfaces only in rare moments of introspection. Regret exists, but it is hidden, camouflaged under the logic of survival and strategy. Each choice that led him deeper into darkness brought with it this duality. Absolute power, but at a cost that could never be measured with numbers or possessions, only felt in the soul. It is in this contrast that the villain's human side is revealed, not to justify his actions, but to show that every journey of transformation carries an emotional and moral weight that does not disappear with the achievement of the goal. He understands that the journey to power is not only made of victories, but also of irreversible losses, of experiences that shape the mind, of behind-the-scenes details of one's own soul that few would dare to observe. Each impactful decision reveals the complexity of a being who has learned to channel pain forcefully, but never without paying the price for what he left behind. The audience feels, along with him, the weight of the choice, the silent tragedy of someone who becomes nearly invincible on the outside, but sees parts of themselves fade away on the inside. Comment. That makes sense to me. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because it is at this moment that we can see the true impact of the entire journey that transformed him. In the end, the Son of Darkness was not born simply to destroy the world. He was born to show what the world destroys within us. Every wound, every rejection, every loss, and every moment of solitude were fundamental pieces that shaped his mindset, his philosophy of pain, and his ability to transform suffering into power. The darkness he carries is not just evil. It is reflection. It is consequence. It is a mirror that reflects the flaws, injustices, and neglect of the world that shaped him. It is in this contrast that we feel the impact of his choices and understand the complexity of his journey. He became a villain not by nature, but by a reality that offered no alternatives, by an environment that shattered innocence and forced extreme decisions. This understanding leads us to reflect on ourselves, on the wounds we carry and how we react to them. What happens when pain is ignored or misunderstood? What decisions does it force us to make? His story serves as a lens through which to observe humanity itself, revealing that the line between light and shadow is tenuous, and that every choice, even motivated by survival, has a profound and irreversible impact. It is at this point that we realize that his true strength lies not only in the power he gained, but in the internal transformation that each suffering provoked, and in the silent price he continues to pay. What if you could delve even deeper into the minds of anime's greatest villains, understanding their backstories, their decisions, and the philosophies that shape them? Comment, "I'm on that journey too." If you've made it this far, it means you've followed every step of this journey and truly immersed yourself in the story of the Son of Darkness. This already shows that you seek to understand not only the characters, but also the deeper layers of each narrative, each decision, and each transformation. This kind of reflection is exactly what we want to share here. Content that explores mindset, choices, and the underbelly of darkness, showing how every detail makes a difference in how we perceive the world and ourselves. If this message resonated with you, leave a comment. I'm with you until the end. I want to see who truly felt every moment of this journey, who connected with the story, and wanted to understand the complexity behind each of the villain's choices. Also, please give us a like, because it helps strengthen the connection we're creating here, allowing us to continue bringing you content that truly adds value, provokes reflection, and reveals hidden truths behind the stories we all love. And for those who want to continue this immersion, there's a video here that complements this topic, shedding even more light on the mindsets of these characters who defy limits and make us think about morality, decisions, and power. Click through and stay with me there, because the journey isn't over yet, and each video is an opportunity to delve deeper, discover new perspectives, and understand the behind-the-scenes story that shapes these fascinating figures. Ultimately, that's the beauty of following complex stories. They not only entertain us, but invite us to reflect on choices, impacts, and transformations. So comment, like, and dive in with me to the next video. The adventure continues, and every detail we uncover together brings us even closer to the truth behind the shadows.